super excited to be here and super excited to share some of the information that we've gleaned at Honey on the post-pandemic shopper. And I think it's important to point out, and we'll talk a little bit more about this as I get into some of the data that we found that, I think that, yes, we are reopening, but I definitely know that there are other parts of the world that are still struggling through the pandemic. And I think post-pandemic may be a little bit of an overstatement. We're still hopefully towards the tail end of what we're all going through. But I also want to be empathetic to the fact that, there are a lot of places across the globe that are still struggling through, COVID-19 and trying to make sure that the people around them are safe. So we're definitely going to be talking about the changes and trends that we've seen, though, as a result of the reopening. And I'll try and get through the presentation as quickly as I can. I can be somewhat verbose sometimes when I get into the topic of direct-to-consumer and small businesses because I'm so passionate about it, and I really do love small businesses. I think they're so crucial. But I would definitely love to answer questions at the end after I kind of run through some of the data and hear what some of the people have to say about some of what we've gleaned at Honey on direct-to-consumer trends. So yeah.
Fantastic, Dexter. Excited for your presentation.
Cool. So with that, I'll jump right into it then. I'm just gonna share my screen here. So again, my name's Dexter Detmers. I'm the Senior Manager of Global Emerging Partnerships at Honey. I oversee about 6,000 small to medium-sized businesses that we say are emerging because, small businesses are constantly growing and evolving. And so, in my time at Honey, I really have grown to love the small business space and in particular, the direct-to-consumer space, which I've really seen bud in a huge way over the last 2 years of my time at Honey. And so today I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about what we've been able to glean at Honey based on the position that we're in and all the merchants that we work with, and how that kind of relates to post-pandemic shopping behaviors and the boom that is upon us, particularly for direct-to-consumer brands. So just to kind of set the stage, I want to talk a little bit about Honey so you can understand the value and context of the data that I'll be sharing today. So Honey, we have over 29 million shoppers globally, and they're extremely active. We have 42 million monthly global site visits to joinhoney.com, and 600 million plus in monthly revenue that we see from our over 10,000 partners. And we've saved people about $15 billion in the time that we've been operating through some of our different products like Drop List and things of that nature. But Honey really is about helping people save money and helping people make smart financial decisions. So we're simply put a better way to buy. We help turn passive shoppers who are just kind of window shopping and looking at your products into active buyers. And the scale and scope that we work on as an extension that helps users make smart buying decisions, we're able to see a very wide landscape of buying behavior. And I wanted to, for this particular presentation, hone in on what we're seeing in the direct-to-consumer space, because I think it's really interesting. It's one of the untold positive stories that we've seen in terms of shopping behavior for small businesses through the pandemic. So let's talk a little bit about the evolution of the direct-to-consumer e-commerce experience. I think over the last 10 years, we really have seen an evolution in shopping behavior, and we really have seen a renaissance in direct-to-consumer shopping. And when I really think about it and we look around the industry, I think there's been a lot of factors that have contributed to that. I think the advent of Shopify and other e-commerce solutions have made it easier than ever to start your own website and sell your products online. There's lots of really great, easy to use marketing distribution points like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, where you can get highly targeted and highly specific. So you can, target a very niche audience for your very niche direct-to-consumer product. And that's caused a renaissance in advertising spending for a lot of these big ad tech platforms. We've also seen a renaissance within the deals and reward space because I think one of the big differentiating factors that consumers look at when they're looking to check out online, comparing to big box retailers like Amazon, Target, and Walmart, is getting good deals and rewards. So we've also seen a renaissance in the uptake and use of honey with direct-to-consumer merchants as a result of that. So we've really seen this space really start to evolve and grow into its own in a pretty incredible way, I'd say. And then, of course, the pandemic happened. And sadly, a lot of small businesses had to close temporarily and some of them permanently. And for me, as somebody who looked after emerging merchants and small to medium-sized businesses primarily, it was hard to watch. My mom runs a small bit, or ran and runs a small business, and I watched her do that growing up as a kid. And so, small businesses play they're a big part of my heart, and I think they're a big part of the American economy. But the silver lining is that when the pandemic occurred, there was this shift in shopping behavior, right? People were buying more things online, and there was a pretty big millennial audience, a lot of frankly honey users that are millennial, that were already doing a lot of their shopping online. They were buying groceries online. They were signing up for subscription services for their self-care needs and everything else. But then there was this older audience that was not as, like, maybe a little bit more skeptical to the e-commerce experience in general and hadn't really developed those online shopping habits yet. And the pandemic really forced them to adopt more digital shopping habits. And so we saw this evolution in direct-to-consumer where it no longer was like optional to have a direct-to-consumer presence, but it was almost mandatory to survive as a small business. And sure, you have your regular distribution channels and direct-to-consumer through like big box retailers, but having that direct-to-consumer presence was a real game changer for a lot of e-commerce businesses and small businesses in particular. So just a stat to kind of back that up. So nearly 1 in 3 Americans now see no difference between shopping with direct-to-consumer brands online and more familiar traditional retailers in store. So consumers are starting to, I think, particularly as a result of some of these pandemic behaviors that have a lot of staying power. They've really started to view direct-to-consumer in the same light that they view maybe checking out on Amazon, Target, or Walmart in a lot of cases. And they're getting more comfortable buying online from direct-to-consumer brands. And I think this is overall a really good thing. So I want to just switch gears for a minute and jump into what we've been seeing at Honey in terms of pandemic shopping trends. So from Q1 2020 to Q2 2020, which is really like when we started to see the pandemic shopping behavior occur, we saw a 36% increase in revenue. And what we mean by that is like gross merchandise value. So the amount of spend from Honey users at direct-to-consumer sites, we actually saw that increase 36% from our top 100 direct-to-consumer partners. So initially you have this step change in behavior where we're seeing from Q1 2020 to Q2 2020, a huge increase in Honey consumers buying direct to consumer. And so that was really positive to see, and that was exciting, and something that I think is sort of opposite to the narrative that you see out there where a lot of Main Street businesses, particularly brick and mortar small businesses, struggled. But on the flip side of that, we did see a lot of online small businesses and direct-to-consumer brands actually start to improve and excel with some of these trends. And then in terms of the staying power of this trend, we talked about how the millennials were already kind of doing a lot of their shopping online, and they were already sort of trained, but then we had this new cohort of individuals that started buying online during the pandemic, that 36% rise that I just showed you from Q1 2020 to Q2 2020. We saw that trend actually continue on into 2021. So if we look at the first half of 2020 versus the first half of 2021, we actually saw another 26% increase for the top 100 direct-to-consumer brands at Honey, just in terms of the amount of money that Honey users are spending at these D2C brands. So that's definitely a positive thing. And it also shows that these behaviors that were developed over the pandemic have staying power, even as traditional brick and mortar shopping reopens. Now, I want to talk for a minute about Honey Gold, which is one of the main products that Honey offers, and one of the really great benefits to being a Honey shopper is getting your Honey Gold. So Honey Gold is a way to incentivize customers to purchase, and it's a points-based rewards program. And members can spend more in order to drive additional conversions and higher average order value without the traditional discounting, like using coupons or deals. So Honey does both, right? So we automatically apply coupon codes at checkout when they're available, but we also give the consumer the ability to earn cash back or points and rewards when available. And right now, Honey Gold is active with over 10,000 merchants on Honey. And we have 58 million shoppers with Honey Gold balances. So, Honey Gold adoption is massive. There's loads and loads of consumers that are leveraging Honey Gold. And again, what we see is it really helps to improve conversions and also to increase average order value. So with that, we looked at these same stats that I was just sharing with you all earlier in terms of comparing the first half of 2020 to the first half of 2021. And it was a 26% increase overall for direct-to-consumer brands that we looked at. And if we just isolate those direct-to-consumer brands that had Honey Gold enabled, the lift was actually 116% year over year. And so what that tells us is a few things. So it tells us that Honey Gold helps direct-to-consumer brands build brand loyalty. It helps them increase average order value and then increase purchase frequency. I think one of the misnomers about the points and rewards space is, it's all about the first conversion, right? But really, loyalty is about building loyalty over time and increasing the purchase frequency of the user. And so for direct-to-consumer brands in particular, where you're competing with a lot of brick and mortar and big box retailers who are potentially even selling your product in their store, you really need any angle you can get at to differentiate and attract consumers to buy direct through your site. And Honey Gold is a really great way of doing that, but points and rewards in general is a great way of doing that. And so I think that was a really important trend that I saw and really began to realize through this, was that Honey is a really powerful tool for direct-to-consumer brands to help them make smart buying decisions. And Honey Gold almost tips the scales in your favor because it allows the user to get a benefit or a value without you discounting your product, which is really important to a lot of direct-to-consumer brands. So that's one really interesting trend that we saw. And now, in addition to that, those same brands that leveraged Honey Gold within their shopping experience also saw a 36% year-over-year increase in net new shoppers from the first half of 2020 to the first half of 2021. That's actually 722% higher than the direct-to-consumer brands that we looked at that did not leverage Honey Gold. So it definitely speaks to the importance and value of creating some sort of incentive for your shoppers to buy directly through your site versus maybe if you're selling your product through Amazon or Walmart or Target, and it's a little bit cheaper, or even if it's the same price, it might be more convenient. You need something in your favor to tip the scales to get the consumer to buy directly through you. The other thing I would say too is when a consumer gets Honey Gold, there's a surprise and delight factor. So the consumer gets this really great positive feeling like, hey, I got 500 Honey Gold, which is equal to about $5 back on my purchase with this brand. And so now you're associating this positive experience with this brand. And when you go to purchase that same product again, you're going to remember that experience. You're going to have that positive feedback. And you're going to say, hey, I remember when I checked out on that site using Honey, and I actually got $5 worth of points and rewards back. And it actually turned out to be cheaper than buying directly through Amazon, or, you know, maybe not cheaper, but competitive, and I got a good feeling. And I think that's the other thing that I want to point out that I think is often overlooked, is that when you're offering an incentive to a customer in terms of points and rewards or even coupons and deals, it gives the consumer a good feeling. The consumer feels like they won, right? And that's a good thing. You want your consumers to feel like they won in your purchase. You don't want them to come out of it feeling like, oh, you know, I bought directly through this brand, and then a while later I saw that same product for $20 cheaper, and now I feel bad about the purchase that I made, right? So I think it's important to not discount that feeling that the shopper has when they check out. You want to make sure that they feel good. And that's really what Honey does, right? We help consumers feel good about the buying decisions that we make. Because Honey, in a sense, is like real-time third-party validation. We're checking to see if there's any available codes. We're checking to see if there's any available points and rewards that you can redeem. And over the years of Honey growing and providing users really valuable discounts and savings, we've established that trust with the user where they know if there isn't a deal or a discount, or there isn't cash back, then that's probably the best deal they're going to get, and they're still going to feel good about their purchase. But then if they get that additional incentive or reward, it makes them feel even better about that purchase. So don't discount the feeling that customers get when they check out from your site. And that kind of leads me to just a couple of stats I wanted to share, just to kind of summarize and just kind of give people some perspective on the shopper mindset, particularly in a post-pandemic world. So 42% of Americans will purchase directly from a branded manufacturer over a third-party seller if they promise free and fast shipping, right? So that speaks to convenience. And then similarly, 42% of Americans would purchase directly from a brand or manufacturer if they received a discount or a promotion from a brand, right? So two things there: price and convenience. So convenience being that fast shipping, and price being the promotion. And again, it feels good when you get cash back, or if you get a discount. Like there's a good feeling associated with that. And if you're direct to consumer, that feeling gets directly associated with your brand. And that leads to increased purchase frequency down the line, which is super important. And again, like 1 in 5 shoppers made a purchase solely based on convenience. And 1 in 4 would buy from a brand that had superior customer service. So again, like all of these stats speak to two things: price and convenience. So just remember that as you're building your direct-to-consumer strategy, and don't discount the feeling that a shopper has when they're checking out through your direct-to-consumer experience. And that's pretty much it for me. So if you want to get in touch with myself or the Honey team, you can email us at yourhoneypartners@joinhoney.com. You can also just go directly to our website and fill out the form on getting started with Honey if you want to partner. And someone will be in touch with you to help you build a partnership with us. And then, of course, you can reach out to us on LinkedIn. So yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, now I'll open it up to any questions that anybody might have.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Dexter. We have a couple of questions, if you don't mind. And I'm Julia. I know Megan kind of introduced you, and I'm kind of rounding out the conversation, but we have a couple of questions in the chat box that I'd love to ask you. And we have about 9 more minutes with you. So we'll go ahead and really dive into some of this. So the first one is, how can D2C brands leverage the post-pandemic boom using Honey?
Yeah, so I think, again, like just making sure that you have an empathetic discount strategy and an empathetic cashback strategy. And what I mean by that is you're really thinking about the consumer experience and how the consumer will feel based on you know, the cashback rewards or the coupon discounts that they receive when they check out. And Honey is a really great way to do this. You know, we're really kind of following the shopper where they go, and We're with them every step of the way. We have all sorts of tools to make those consumers stickier to those direct-to-consumer brands. Things like we have a store follow feature. So we allow our users to follow stores and get alerted when there's a new deal, or if there's a new cashback or points offer, or even if there's just specific deals on product categories. So the store follow feature is a really great way of engaging those consumers. And then we also have Honey Tips. So if you're working with Honey already, I'd strongly encourage you to talk with the Honey team about getting Honey Tips live. And basically what Honey Tips is it's the ability for Honey to share some tips or advice to shoppers about your brand that may not be directly a discount or a cashback offer, but maybe it's letting them know that that you offer free shipping over a certain amount, or that you offer warranty on your products for a certain period of time. So a way of really messaging out those ancillary benefits of shopping directly through your site versus maybe buying your product elsewhere or a competitor's product.
Great, thank you. We have another one for you. How can brands leverage this D2C trend to better own the relationship with their customers? And then there's a part 2, but we'll get to that one first.
Sure. Yeah, so I think forming a partnership with Honey is a great way of making sure that you're catering to that 30 million user base that I was sharing earlier, and engaging with them in a way that feels authentic and feels like you're actually giving them a benefit or a discount for shopping directly through your site versus other sites. And also understanding that every sale is competitive, right? So one of the things we have insight into at Honey, because we're a browser extension and we can see our shoppers and how they shop, is that shoppers love to cross-site comparison shop. At any given time, generally, particularly when shoppers are making high average order value decisions, like if you're buying a fridge or you're buying a big appliance, you're gonna do a lot more cross-site comparison shopping than you would for, say, a smaller average order value purchase. And so I think keeping in mind the fact that your consumers are going to be shopping around, and putting yourself in the shoes of the consumer. So going through that experience yourself and seeing what other competitors are out there, how competitive are they on price. And Honey is a great way of getting somebody who's in that cross-site comparison shopping journey to transact right then and there, getting them to pull the trigger. Because otherwise, they're gonna keep cross-site comparison shopping until they feel good about the purchase that they're about to make. And I keep going back to that feel good. It's actually super important that your consumers feel really good about the purchase that they're about to make, and Honey's a great way of doing that.
Yeah, I can just say on a personal level, I will spend a very long time, comparing all different prices, comparing reviews, and that experience can be daunting. So I definitely think, as you just said, getting someone to actually pull the trigger, that in itself is absolutely amazing. And then the part 2 of this question is, how have you seen winning brands capitalize on this?
Yeah, so I would say the brands that have really won in the D2C space are brands that are leveraging one of our newer products called Honey Offers, which allows our merchants to message users about specific product offers. So maybe they're getting in general, let's say 5% back in points or rewards. But if they buy a specific product category or a specific brand, they could get an additional amount back. And that's actually messaged really early on in the funnel of the consumer experience. So rather than messaging that out in a very broad context on the landing page, this is actually messaged very specifically to the consumer at the product level. So when they go to the product page, there's something that shows up that's a Honey tip that says, hey, just so you know, on this specific product, we have a much deeper and richer offer for you if you check out within the next 24 hours. So it's also a time sensitive offer. So the direct to consumer brands that I've seen be successful on Honey are the ones that are working closely with the Honey team to build their offer strategy and create these time sensitive offers that will increase conversion rate, reduce cross-site comparison shopping, and ultimately get the user to, or the shopper to transact right then and there.
Great, thank you so much for that. We have one more for you before you sign off, and that is, which pandemic fuel, this is from Molly, which pandemic fueled trends are here to stay? Are there any e-commerce trends that you see fizzling out as the world begins to reopen?
Yeah, so I think direct to consumer in general as a model is likely here to stay. Like I was saying before, we've definitely seen a renaissance in direct to consumer. And I think a large part of that is because Shopify's made it so easy, number one, but also number two, distribution platforms like social media platforms have made it really easy to target super niche products. And those two things mean that it's really easy to spin up a business and focus on and take over like a hyper targeted market. Like you're seeing a lot of direct to consumer brands that are really focused on, like I've seen direct to consumer brands that only sell hats, like Melon. And that's all they do is sell hats, but they target those hats very well. And they're so good at optimizing the funnel that they've made an incredibly successful business just selling hats. And I think a lot of the technological trends, like adjacent technological trends around like Shopify and this specific targeting has lended itself to that. But I also think that those same brands, those really smart, good direct-to-consumer brands, are also leveraging Honey to help offer those discounts and rewards to make the consumer feel good and come back again. Because at the end of the day, you know, a site like Melon, they don't want somebody just buying one hat. They want them to buy all their hats through Melon. And so I think, you know, that trend has staying power for sure. I also think that consumers that have adopted more digital trends through the pandemic are going to continue to purchase directly through e-commerce and continue those trends. They may lighten up over time, like especially with you know, the vaccine becoming more ubiquitous and people feeling more comfortable going out. You know, those trends may like level out a little bit, but I don't see them collapsing. I see them maintaining and continuing to grow over time. Yeah, so I mean, I think in general, just buying more and spending more time online is something that is not going to change. It has staying power. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I loved how you said that you're starting, you know, as one of the post-pandemic trends you're seeing is that people who wouldn't have necessarily done their purchasing online, the majority of it are continuing with that trend. So you were definitely right.